Oh guys, look at this beautiful, beautiful banana nut bread. Wait till you try this recipe. You're gonna really like this one, guys. It's a good one. Well, howdy folks, welcome back to Texas Cooking Today. On this episode, we're going to be making a banana bread. Now, banana bread is flat delicious. It's an old-fashioned recipe, and it is just fun to make. It allows you to use up older bananas that you normally might not eat, and it's just a good way to use ingredients and to get something very special out of some of the simplest items in the kitchen. So guys, what I did today, I wanted to develop for you a very special recipe. I did a lot of study on banana breads, and it's been a long time since I've made one. The recipe I originally developed, I lost in some water damage. So anyway, I was actually storm damage, and I lost a lot of my recipes. And anyway, that was one of them that went down the tubes. Anyway, as I was developing this thing, and I was examining more modern techniques of making banana bread. I noticed that modern techniques a lot of times use cream of tartar and stuff like that. And it's just slightly different in overall structure. Less banana, more flour, that kind of thing, on more of the more modern banana bread takes. A lot of the older ones had a lot more banana in them, and instead of using cream of tartar with baking soda, they would be, at that time, they would add lemon, buttermilk, things like that to bump the acid up while using baking soda. And so they got good rising from that. Anyway, that was some of the biggest difference I saw, was just more banana in recipes that were 50 to 100 years old versus present day recipes. So what I wanted to do is to give you a good blending. This brings a little of the old with some of the new, and I've worked a good balanced recipe for you here. So it's a good size recipe. It'll do 2 small loaves, 1 large loaf, or about 12 muffins, 12 to 18, let me put it that way, 12 to 18 muffins. So it's a good recipe. You're gonna love it. Now guys, this is your cook along tutorial. It's gonna be detailed. Let's get in the kitchen and let's get busy cooking this thing up. Come on, let's go. Oh, looky there. Guys, check that out. Wonderful ingredients. Now, first off, this is all about the banana. Something we need to talk about, guys. When it comes to choosing the perfect banana for banana bread. See these? They don't look all that good, do they? They're kind of splotchy and icky, and basically this is the kind of banana that most folks aren't really interested in eating. I wouldn't eat them like this normally. However, when it comes to banana bread, if they're not like this, then you need to let them set out for a while until they get like this, because the only way to get this right is to take your bananas ripe. Okay, now I need 3 for this, so I'm going to take one of these off of here. There we go. Set it aside. I've got my other 3. We're going to peel these bananas in just a little bit, and I'm going to mash them up. Okay, so what you're looking for is about 3 medium-sized bananas. If they're really big, think about that. It's going to be a little bit moister bread. It won't hurt anything. It'll just be a little bit moister. That's all. If they're really small, your bread will be a little drier. So I found some nice medium-sized bananas to go with, just for middle of the road. Guys, a lot of really cool ingredients here, so come up closer and let's go over everything. Let me give you the proportions that you're going to need. So if you're making a recipe, you're writing it down, get your pen and paper ready and get ready to write, because I'm going to give you the measurements for all of your ingredients right now. Come on over. All right guys, all of our beautiful ingredients that we have here, as I mentioned, are bananas that you already know about. We're going to mash those up in a little bit. I have here 1 stick of butter. That's ½ a cup of butter. You do not want to melt this, but do bring it to room temperature. On our leavenings, I have 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 2 teaspoons of double acting baking powder. Back here is ½ a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/4 of a cup of milk, 3 cups of flour, 3/4 of a cup of chopped nuts. Use any kind of nuts you want. Guys, I'm going to be using pecans in mine. 2 eggs and 1 cup of granulated sugar. That's it, okay? And as far as what we cook it up in, that's easy enough, folks. We have a couple of different options. We can either use like a cake pan, maybe an 8x8 or even a round of similar size. We can use loaf pans, or we can go with something like this, where we use muffin cups. And I would recommend the foil inserts for those muffin cups. These things work great, guys, and they really make life so much cleaner and better. Doesn't matter what we use except for these. When it comes to doing this in a pan, we're going to need to grease and flour those pans. And so I've got some flour here, and I'm also going to be using some shortening on this. So very easy to do. Now guys, without any further time wasting, let's get into making this wonderful tasting banana nut bread. Now guys, before we get into making the cake, there's a few things that we need to do to set it up. Let's go ahead, separate our bananas, peel them and get them down in this bowl. Now, there we go. This is simple enough. And as I mentioned, you do not want a banana that's not fully ripe like this. If they're getting soft, they're just right. If they're mushy, they may be overripe, okay? Now guys, if your bananas are not fully ripe and you want to get this kicked off a little sooner than later, you can go ahead and just get your bananas as a yellow banana and add a little bit of lemon, and that helps in the process of ripening and making it a little bit softer. As you can see here, my masher. Now if you don't have a masher, hey, do this with a fork, okay? If you got a masher, that's the best way to go. It gives me a good quality. Now guys, I would venture to say I've got maybe, a cup and a half total of mashed banana right there, okay? So that's all you're gonna need. In a moment we'll scrape the bowl smooth and we'll have it ready to go into our batter. Now it's always best when you're working any recipe to get things like this done before it's time to mix everything together. So in other words, you would want your butter already brought to room temperature. You want your banana already mashed, flour already sifted, so forth and so on. And speaking of that, let's move right into the flour. Alright guys, I have my old antique sifter here and our flour. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just placing some of the flour in my sifter. And I'll say this, if you don't have a sifter, then use a strainer, and you can simply bump the strainer with your hand and it will sift just fine. Now that some flour is in there, let's get our baking powder, baking soda, and salt. Salt right there. Put more of my flour over the top of that. Guys, let me tell you something. If you think that sifting isn't important, I've got news for you. It's exceptionally important. It makes sure that you don't have any lumps of flour in your finished product, which is really nasty. It also makes sure that you have a light product that's airy and soft and tender. It does affect the texture of what you make, without a doubt. Okay guys, it is time to grease and flour the pan. Now, as I mentioned before, you can do this in 2 of these pans. If you do a medium-sized loaf pan like this one, then it's going to probably rise up too high and maybe spill over the sides. If you do a large loaf pan, that'll work fine. 2 mediums do really good. Also, like I said, cake pans work out well for this. I'm going to take a little bit of that shortening right there, and that's just vegetable shortening, and I'm going to work it around the inside of this pan. Now guys, if you'll notice, it looks a little thick right now. Okay, I'm not using all of what I had there, all right? What's in there is now more than enough. I just have to get it evenly spread. You don't want that to be too thick. You want just a very, very thin layer of it. The whole idea of doing a grease and flour is this makes any pan, regardless of its type, non-stick. Basically, this is the original non-stick coating, folks. And whether your pan is non-stick or not, go ahead and do this. Because even non-stick pans, I have noticed over the years, they stick. Okay, so just follow your recipes when it says to grease and flour. So when we're going to grease and flour, we need a little bit of flour in our pan. Not a lot. A few tablespoons will do fine. All you're going to do is just kind of sift it around the sides. And see how I do this? Just working it around, making sure everything gets coated. And if you've never done this, then well, this is your big chance to learn. And if you make a little bit of a mess with it, well guys, just don't sweat it. It cleans up real easy. Now what I want to do is I want to take the excess on this, I want to turn this upside down and tap it on my sink so all of that excess falls off of there. And that's what it ends up being like. Beautiful, greased and floured. Now guys, don't forget to turn your oven on. Set it for 350 degrees. This is the perfect time. It gives it just the right amount of time to preheat. Okay guys, we have everything ready. Flour is sifted with the leavenings and the salt and ready to go. I've got my banana mush back here and my eggs are now cracked. Everything is ready to go in this. But first we have to cream the butter. So I'll tell you what, come around over to the mixer here, get a look down in the bowl, and let's show you exactly what creaming butter is supposed to be. Now guys, one of the reasons on my tutorials I like to get good shots down in these bowls is to show you exactly what happens to the texture of an item as it's worked. What it looks like to begin with and what it looks like after you've worked it. And that way you have some idea of where you're supposed to be going with this. And that was one of the ways I learned when I was younger. I would watch my mother doing this and I would look down in that bowl, and as I studied her work, it was clear that there were changes happening, and I learned from that. So what we're going to do is we're going to volumize. We're going to cream this butter. That brings it up in volume by adding air to it. It makes it lighter and softer and produces much better quality cake in the end. Alright guys, this has just been started, and I'm going to do a counting timer on this. So what we'll do is I'll just push this, and this thing will start counting up. And I'm going to set it in the back of the frame over here so you can just kind of peer over at it from time to time. And this is going to give you a time index, because I have a tendency to, well, time lapse forward a little bit on my videos. So this gives you some comparison. Guys, I'm about 2.5, going on 3 minutes in. Every once in a while I'll stop and just break it loose. If you notice, that's turned lighter in color and it has increased in its volume. Oh yeah. So this is creaming, guys, and it's real important. It is just a part of how really good quality cakes and pies and things like that are made. So get at it. Now guys, look at our time and look at our butter. Slow this down. So you can see the butter, again, a little more volume there, a much lighter color. It's almost white in its appearance, where before it was quite yellow. And of course, that's just by whipping in that air and giving it a little bit different texture. And what this does is it adds air to the inside of the cake before it is even beginning to be made. So before the leavenings do their job, we've already done a little bit of our own. So I'm going to put these eggs in. Always do this at slow speed. If you throw your ingredients in a mixer while it's running at high speed, well, I've got some news for you. It's going to throw them back out at you. Now, just slowly increase. And guys, I'm going to start working in my sugar at the same time here. A little more of our sugar. Remember, I was telling you about texture that develops. With what we're doing here, I'm going to add a little more of that sugar. That's that grinding noise you hear. It's the sugar hitting the bottom of the bowl. I'm also going to put in my vanilla. Alright guys, now again, let's look at that. Let's look at the texture, the consistency, all of this. Right now, it has sort of a light grainy kind of look to it, similar to the way the beginning of a pound cake looks, if you've ever made one of those. If not, well, it's kind of what it looks like. We're going to be working in our other ingredients, our flour, our bananas, and it's not going to get all at once, so I'm going to alternate those ingredients. And I'm going to start by putting in half a cup of my flour, a little bit of my milk, and I'm going to get it going again. A little more milk. Now I'm going to add in some of my banana. Not all, just a bit. There we go. This is how we know we get even mixing. Things don't get all sludgy and weird on us. We don't have to worry about something coming out a little uneven. Okay, the last of my banana goes in. The last of my flour. Now guys, something I need to do before I go any further on this, and that is, I need to scrape down my bowl again, because there's always that little thin amount that makes contact with the bowl but not the beater, and we want to break that loose so we get, again, even, thorough mixing. Looks good, smells absolutely delicious. And understand, I'm not big on bananas myself, but hey, this is delicious. I'm going to give it one more go as I work in my nuts. All right, it's done. All I have to do is just get it portioned into what I'm going to be baking it up in. Now guys, when it comes to getting it into whatever you're cooking it in, if you're going to get it in something small like this, pouring it is difficult. So I recommend using like a scoop or a measuring cup like this, or you can use a disher like for ice cream. Works really good for this, okay? So a lot of neat little ways of doing that. When you're going to go for a larger pan like this, you can just pour it in direct. When you're filling one of these pans, you want to try to keep it from getting too full. So you want to limit yourself to about 3/4 of the way full. And that right there is a little more than half of that total batch, all right? The rest of this I'm going to be using down in the muffin cups. This, just kind of level it off as much as you can. Okay, let's see if I can do these without making too much of a mess of it, all right? So what I want to do, like I said, I'm just going to use a little measuring cup, and I'm using a 1/3 cup measure here. And what I'll do is if I have any left over, then I'll probably end up going into my loaf pan with any additional that's left from these muffin cups. I want to try not to overfill these. And then I can top off, as I mentioned before, my loaf pan with anything left over. Now guys, my timer has just rolled over, and that makes it right about a total of 20 minutes in all of that making, okay? That wasn't too tough, was it? Now what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning up my pans a little bit, and they're ready to go in the oven. Okay guys, these go down in the oven. There we go. All right guys, that is in the oven, 350 degrees. We're gonna give it about an hour now, so you'll know the muffins are probably gonna cook a little bit quicker. They're smaller, okay? So what we're gonna do is that toothpick test. On those muffins, you wanna check those in the neighborhood of around 35 to 45 minutes to begin with. Put a toothpick in, pull it out. If the toothpick has any wet batter on it, let them cook. If it's dry, the muffins are done. That bread though, it should take about an hour. Do the same toothpick test, okay? Oh, in the meantime, just go hang out and have a good one. Well guys, these are just now out of the oven, all right? This one came out after 52 minutes, and these came out, they're already cool now, these came out after 30 minutes in the oven. So remember, that size makes a huge difference in how long they cook. And the reason is the center on this takes a lot longer to get up to the right temperature to finish off. So anyway, they're both done. I'm gonna wait for this to cool down, and then I can remove it from the pan, and then it's ready to slice. But I'll tell you what guys, take a look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? That's the way a banana bread should look on top. Well guys, this is all out of the oven. It's had time to cool. The bread I've given about 30 minutes to cool, and now I can touch the bottom of the pan, which makes turning it out real easy. That's all there is to it. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at the bottom. See how well structured it came out? Now let's go ahead and cut this thing open so we can see what it's like. All right. Look at that, folks. Isn't that beautiful? Our muffins. You know, the nice thing about using that foil is how easily it releases, and it does a pretty clean job of it. So you don't get as much muffin still stuck to the wrapper. So guys, either way, as you can see, it's a beautiful way of doing a banana nut bread. And we're talking about delicious. Here it is, guys. We've done a beautiful job on this one. Isn't that gorgeous? Beautiful. Look at all the nuts in that. It's just ready to go. I tell you what, either way, whether you're doing it as a cake or whether you're doing it as a loaf or whether you're doing muffins or whatever, this is a wonderful recipe. And the best part is how rewarding it is. It's light, fluffy, supremely moist. Great structure and great flavor. I like that one. Well guys, there you have it. What it is like for me to produce something on paper and then create it. Wonderful recipe. You're gonna like this one. It comes out very good and it's flexible. You can use it in so many ways. Guys, happy holidays to you. Thank you for watching Texas Cooking Today. If you would, please subscribe. Please share my videos. And thank you very much for watching. I would like to say one last thing. Happy holidays, and you guys have a good day. Bye-bye.